The first rule of surviving Eldermere: never trust the shadows. They move when you're not looking, whispering secrets, hiding teeth. Lyra learned that the hard way the night she stumbled into a town that wasn't on any map. Now, with a dagger in her grip and a stranger at her side who knows more than he's saying, she's running toward a truth that could unravel everything. But the real question isn't what's chasing them. It's who sent it, and why the hell the shadows keep calling her name. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. All right, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the quiet town of Eldermere, its rays filtering through the dense canopy of ancient oaks that lined the cobbled streets. A light breeze carried the scent of freshly baked bread from the local bakery, mingling with the earthy aroma of dew-kissed grass. The town was just stirring to life, shopkeepers unlocking their doors and farmers hauling carts of produce to the market square. Near the edge of town, a young woman with fiery red hair and a determined glint in her green eyes adjusted the strap of her leather satchel. Lyra sighed, kicking a pebble down the road. "Another day, another dead end," she muttered, scowling at the crumpled map in her hand. A deep chuckle sounded behind her. "Still lost, are we?" Lyra whirled around to see Kale, a broad-shouldered man with a scruffy beard and arms crossed over his chest, leaning against a fence post. His smirk was infuriatingly smug. "I'm not lost," Lyra snapped, folding the map with more force than necessary. "I'm strategically reassessing my route." Kale raised an eyebrow. "Ah, so that's why you've been walking in circles for the past hour." Lyra's cheeks flushed. "I have not. And even if I were, it's none of your business." Kale pushed off the post, his amusement fading into something softer. "Look, if you're trying to get to the old ruins, you're going the wrong way. The bridge near Miller's Creek washed out last week." Lyra groaned, dragging a hand through her hair. "Perfect. Just perfect. Why didn't anyone mention that?" "Because you didn't ask," Kale said, shrugging. "Most folks around here know better than to wander off without checking the roads first." Lyra shot him a glare. "I'm not most folks." Kale's lips twitched. "No, definitely something else." Before Lyra could retort, a high-pitched shriek cut through the air. Both turned to see a small boy sprinting down the street, his face pale with terror. "Monsters! In the wheat fields!" Kale's expression hardened instantly. "What kind of monsters?" The boy skidded to a stop, gasping. "Big ones, with teeth and claws. They tore Old Man Harlow's fence apart." Lyra's pulse quickened. "How many?" "3, maybe 4, the boy cried. Kale didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rusted sword propped against the fence and tossed it to Lyra, who caught it with surprising ease. She blinked. "What's this for?" Kale was already striding toward the fields. "You said you're not most folks." "Prove it." Lyra tightened her grip on the sword, a slow grin spreading across her face. "Oh, I intend to." The two broke into a run, the boy's warning echoing behind them. The peaceful morning had shattered, replaced by the promise of danger, and for Lyra, the first real adventure of her life. Chapter 2. The neon buzz of the rusty bolt hummed louder in the sudden silence as the 3 aliens stood frozen in the doorway. Every human I locked onto them, some curious, some amused, most already sizing them up for a fight. Jessa Carter leaned back against the bar, her crimson suit catching the dim light as she twirled her knife lazily between her fingers. The lead alien, VRYX, tilted his head like a confused holovid predator studying its prey. "You hit him," Zyra said, her voice a mix of disbelief and something almost like awe as she stared at Brick, who was still holding the broken bottle. Brick grinned, tossing the shattered neck onto the floor with a clatter. "Damn right I did. You gonna cry about it?" VRYX touched the damp spot on his smooth, obsidian skull where the synth whiskey dripped. "This is inefficient. Why waste energy on violence without purpose?" Jessa snorted, pushing off the bar. Purpose? Sweetie, sometimes the purpose is just fun. A chuckle rippled through the crowd. Dax, the mountain of a miner with arms like hydraulic pistons, cracked his knuckles. You aliens always gotta analyze everything. Sometimes a man just wants to punch something. Zyra's violet eyes flicked between them, her slender fingers flexing. You are defective. Your species should have wiped itself out by now. Elena Vasquez, perched on a stool with her boots kicked up, smirked. Yeah, well, we're stubborn like that. She took a slow sip of her drink, then slammed the glass down. Also, you're in my seat. Corv, the third alien, bristled. You do not own this structure. Elena's smile turned razor sharp. I do, and I'm the one who'll stab you for it. The tension snapped like a wire. VRYX moved first, lightning fast, his hand shooting out to grab Brick's throat. But Brick wasn't some backwater brawler. He'd fought in the Martian trenches. He twisted, driving his elbow into VRYX's ribs with a crack. The alien hissed, stumbling back. Zyra lunged at Jessa, her movements elegant, precise, until Jessa yanked a chair into her path. Zyra went down hard, her breath leaving in a startled oof. You cheat, Zyra spat, scrambling up. Jessa winked. It's not cheating if there's no rules. Across the room, Dax had Corv in a headlock, the alien's legs kicking uselessly. Y'all are lighter than you look. Dax Laukit. Then the bar's owner, a grizzled old spacer named Hark, bellowed from behind the counter. Break it up, or I'm charging all of you for the damages. For half a second, everything froze. Then Brick threw the first punch. The bar erupted. Chairs splintered. Glass shattered. Someone's boot went through a hologram screen, sending sparks flying. Jessa ducked under Zyra's swing, driving her shoulder into the alien's gut and sending her crashing into a table. Elena, ever the opportunist, snatched a bottle and lobbed it at Corv's head. Thunk, right between the eyes. VRYX, panting, wiped violet blood from his lip. This is illogical. Brick, grinning through a split lip, grabbed it by the front of his sleek alien tunic. Welcome to Earth, genius. And then he kneed him in the ribs. The fight raged on, humans and aliens tangled in a mess of limbs and laughter and the occasional yelp of pain. And in the middle of it all, Jessa caught Zyra's wrist mid-swing, leaned in close, and whispered, Bet you never saw this in your reports, huh? Zyra's eyes burned with something new, not anger, excitement. Then Jessa headbutted her, and the chaos swallowed them both whole. Chapter 3. The bar was a symphony of destruction, with splintering, glass shattering, and the occasional yelp of pain cutting through the laughter. The aliens had expected combat. What they got was chaos. Zyra rolled to her feet, her violet eyes wide as she took in the madness. A human, some scrawny mechanic with grease stains on his shirt, was laughing as he swung a chair at Corv's head. You find this amusing? Zyra hissed, barely dodging Jessa's elbow. Jessa grinned, wiping blood from her lip. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea. Across the room, VRYX was learning the hard way that human fights didn't follow rules. Brick had him in a headlock, ruffling his smooth obsidian scalp like he was some unruly kid. Come on, Shiny, say uncle. VRYX snarled, twisting free with a move that would have snapped a human spine. You are insufferable. Brick just laughed. And you're learning. Zyra lunged at Jessa again, her strikes precise, calculated. Everything human brawling wasn't. Jessa ducked under a razor-sharp swipe, then hooked a foot behind Zyra's knee. The alien went down hard, her breath leaving in a sharp gasp. You cheat, Zyra spat. Jessa straddled her, pinning her wrists. Nah, I adapt. Elena vaulted over the bar, landing beside them with a fresh bottle in hand. You two done flirting? Jessa shot her a look. Shut up, Vasquez. Zyra's eyes flicked between them. Your camaraderie is inefficient. Elena smirked. Says the lady getting her ass kicked by it. She tossed the bottle to a grinning Dax, who caught it mid-swing and cracked it over Corv's shoulder. Corv staggered, his usually impassive face twisted in something close to outrage. "This is barbaric. Das Schulget. Yeah, but it's fun." VRYX finally broke free of Brick, panting, his sleek uniform torn. "You fight without honor." Brick cracked his knuckles. "Honor's for people who lose." Then the bar's front window shattered as a massive figure hurled through it. Everyone froze. The newcomer, a hulking alien twice VRYX's size, with armor plating and glowing red eyes, rose from the wreckage. Zyra paled. "Cracks." Jessa blinked. Friend of yours." VRYX's voice was tight. "No, he's death." Cracks grinned, cracking his neck. "Umans. Finally, I wanted to break something today." The bar went dead silent. Then Jessa sighed, rolling her shoulders. "All right, kids. Round 2. Chapter 4. The cave was darker than Lyra had expected, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic. The flickering torch in Kale's hand cast long, twisting shadows against the jagged walls, making the narrow passage feel even more claustrophobic. Lyra nudged a loose pebble with her boot, sending it skittering ahead. "You sure this is the right way? Feels like we've been walking in circles." Kale shot her a sideways glance. "Trust me, I've tracked worse than a bunch of thieves through these tunnels. They couldn't have gone far." "Yeah? And what if they're waiting to ambush us?" Lyra tightened her grip on her dagger, her knuckles whitening. Kale smirked. "Then I guess we'll finally see if that fancy footwork of yours is good for more than just running away." Lyra scoffed. "Oh, please. The only thing I've seen you outrun is common sense." Before Kale could retort, a faint scuffling noise echoed from deeper in the cave. Both froze, ears straining. A low, guttural growl rumbled through the darkness, sending a chill down Lyra's spine. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's not human." Lyra swallowed hard. "You think?" A pair of glowing yellow eyes appeared in the shadows, followed by another, then another. The creatures emerged slowly, hulking, wolf-like beasts with matted fur and saliva dripping from jagged fangs. Their snarls filled the tunnel, bouncing off the walls like a chorus of death. Kale cursed under his breath. "Shadow Hounds." Of course it had to be Shadow Hounds. Lyra's heart pounded. "You fought these before?" "Once. Didn't end well." "Fantastic." The largest beast lunged without warning, its jaws snapping inches from Lyra's face. She barely dodged, rolling to the side as Kale swung his torch at the creature. The flame hissed as it singed fur, and the hound yelped, recoiling. Lyra scrambled to her feet. "Okay, new plan, we run." Kale didn't argue. They bolted down the tunnel, the hound's snarls hot on their heels. The path forked ahead, and Kale grabbed Lyra's arm, yanking her to the right. "This way." She stumbled but kept pace. "Got any more bright ideas?" "Working on it." A sharp turn sent them skidding into a wider cavern, and Lyra's breath caught. The walls glittered with veins of luminescent crystal, casting an eerie blue glow over the space. But there was no time to admire it. The hounds burst in behind them, fanning out to cut off escape. Kale backed against the wall, torch raised. "Got any of those fire spells you bragged about?" Lyra shot him a glare. "I said I studied magic, not that I could cast it." One of the hounds lunged again, and this time, Lyra reacted on instinct. She slashed with her dagger, catching the beast across the muzzle. It howled, retreating, but the others only grew more aggressive. Kale's voice was tight. "We can't take them all. On my mark, we make for that tunnel on the left." Lyra nodded, muscles coiled. "Just say the word." The hounds tensed, preparing to strike, then the ground trembled. A deep, resonant crack split the air as the cavern floor beneath the hounds gave way, swallowing them into the darkness below. The remaining beasts hesitated, ears flattening, before turning tail and fleeing. Silence fell, broken only by Lyra's ragged breathing. She stared at the gaping hole where the hounds had been. What in the seven hells was that? Kale's face was grim. "This cave's unstable. We need to move. Now." A distant rumble answered him, as if the earth itself agreed. Lyra didn't argue. They sprinted for the exit, the crystal's glow fading behind them as the tunnel sloped upward. Finally, fresh air hit Lyra's face as they burst out into the night. She doubled over, hands on her knees, sucking in greedy breaths. Remind me, never to follow your lead again. Kale wiped sweat from his brow, grinning despite everything. Where's the fun in that? Lyra groaned. Next time, I pick the death trap. A distant howl echoed through the trees, and Kale's smile vanished. We're not done yet. Those hounds were just the start. Lyra straightened, meeting his gaze. Then what are we waiting for? The torchlight flickered between them, casting their determined faces in sharp relief. Somewhere ahead, the real fight was waiting, and they were running straight toward it. Chapter 5. The bar was in ruins. Broken glass crunched underfoot as Cracks, the armored behemoth, cracked his knuckles with a sound like snapping bones. His glowing red eyes swept over the battered humans and aliens, lingering on VRYX with obvious contempt. You let these creatures best you? Cracks' voice was a deep, grating rumble. Pathetic. VRYX wiped violet blood from his lip, straightening his torn uniform. You don't understand them, Cracks. They fight differently. Cracks snorted. They fight like animals. Jessa stepped forward, rolling her neck until it popped. Yeah? And what's that make you, big guy? The zookeeper. Cracks' glare could have melted steel. I'm the end of your miserable species. Elena let out a low whistle. Oh, scary. You rehearsed that in the mirror. Dax cracked his knuckles, grinning. Come on, Jessa. Let's see if he fights as good as he talks. Cracks didn't wait. He moved faster than anything that size should, his fists slamming into Dax's chest like a freight train. The miner flew backward, crashing through a table in a shower of splinters. Brick cursed, lunging in with a haymaker that Cracks caught mid-swing. The alien twisted, and Brick's arm made a sickening pop as he hit the ground with a pained grunt. Zyra's eyes widened. Cracks, stop. This isn't. Cracks backhanded her without looking, sending her sprawling. Weakness disgusts me. Jess's smirk vanished. Something dark flickered in her eyes as she watched Zyra struggle to rise. Elena noticed, sidling up beside her. Oh, someone's pissed. Jess's voice was dangerously calm. Yeah, and someone's about to learn why you don't hit a lady in front of me. Cracks laughed. What will you do, human? Bleed on me? Jessa reached behind the bar, pulling out a battered plasma cutter. The tool hummed to life, casting a blue glow across her face. Nah, I'm gonna carve you. Cracks hesitated just for a second. That was all she needed. Jessa moved, ducking under his swing and driving the plasma cutter into his side. The smell of burning armor filled the air as Cracks roared, backhanding her across the room. She hit the wall hard but rolled to her feet, blood trickling from her nose. Elena tossed her a bottle. He's kinda tough, huh? Jessa caught it, grinning. Just how I like him. VRYX stared at them, then at Cracks clutching his seared side. Something in his expression shifted. You're winning. Brick groaned, clutching his dislocated arm. Damn right we are. Cracks snarled, tearing a metal support beam from the wall. Enough. Jessa spat blood, squaring her shoulders. All right, ugly. Let's dance. Chapter 6. The storm raged outside the abandoned watchtower, rain lashing against the cracked stone walls like 1,000 furious fingers. Thunder growled in the distance, punctuated by the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the ruined interior in stark, flickering bursts. Lyra pressed her back against the damp wall, her fingers tightening around the hilt of her dagger as she listened for movement outside. Kale crouched beside her, his breath steady but his eyes sharp with tension. They're close. I can smell the wet dog stench from here. Lyra shot him a sideways glance. You sure that's not just you? He smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. Funny. Real funny. A low, guttural snarl echoed from beyond the broken doorway, followed by the unmistakable sound of claws scraping against stone. Lyra's pulse spiked. They found us. Kale shifted, gripping his sword. No more running, then. Lyra exhaled sharply. Guess not. The first shadow hound lunged through the doorway, its yellow eyes gleaming with predatory hunger. Kale met it mid-leap, his blade slicing through the air with a deadly whistle. The creature yelped as steel bit into flesh, collapsing in a heap. But more followed, 3, then 5, their massive forms crowding into the cramped space. Lyra ducked as one swiped at her, its claws tearing through the fabric of her sleeve. She hissed in pain, but didn't falter, driving her dagger into the beast's flank. It howled, twisting away, but another was already taking its place. Kale fought like a man possessed, his movements a blur of controlled fury. We can't hold them off forever. Lyra gritted her teeth. Got any bright ideas? He kicked a hound back, buying a second to glance at the crumbling staircase behind them. Up, now! They broke for the stairs, the hounds snarling at their heels. Lyra took the steps 2 at a time, her boots slipping on the moss-slick stone. The staircase groaned ominously under their weight, but they didn't stop until they reached the top, a narrow, open platform exposed to the storm. Kale whirled, slashing at the first hound to crest the stairs. We're trapped. Lyra's mind raced. The tower was too high to jump, and the hounds would overwhelm them in moments. Then her eyes landed on the frayed rope dangling from the rusted bell above. Old, but maybe just enough. She grabbed Kale's arm. The rope. Swing to the next roof. He followed her gaze, understanding flashing in his eyes. You're insane. Got a better plan? A hound lunged, and Kale barely dodged. No, Lyra didn't wait. She leapt, catching the rope with both hands. The old fibers groaned, but held as she swung out over the deadly drop, the wind and rain whipping at her face. For a heart-stopping moment, she hung in midair. Then her boots hit the opposite rooftop, skidding across the wet tiles. She turned just in time to see Kale follow, his swing wilder, his landing less graceful. He crashed onto the roof beside her, rolling to absorb the impact. The hounds howled in frustration from the tower, unable to follow. Lyra grinned, breathless. See? Insane works. Kale groaned, pushing himself up. Next time, I picked the suicide move. A sharp crack cut through the storm's roar, the tower's staircase collapsing under the weight of the hounds. The creatures tumbled into the darkness below, their snarls fading into the night. Lyra exhaled, the adrenaline ebbing. That bought us time, but they'll find another way around. Kale nodded, wiping rain from his face. Then we keep moving. The artifact's close. I can feel it. Lyra studied him. You never did tell me why you're so set on finding it. His expression darkened, just for a moment. Let's just say I owe someone a debt. The unspoken weight in his words hung between them, but Lyra didn't press. Instead, she turned toward the next rooftop, where a dim light flickered in the distance. Then let's go settle it. Together, they ran into the storm, the shadows at their backs, and the promise of answers ahead. Chapter 7. The rusty bolt was barely standing anymore. Walls scorched, tables shattered, and the neon sign outside sputtering its last flickers of light. Cracks loomed in the center of the wreckage, his armor smoking from Jess's plasma cutter, his red eyes burning with fury. You vermin actually think you can beat me? Cracks growled, hefting the metal support beam like it weighed nothing. Jessa wiped blood from her split lip, her breath coming hard, but her grip steady on the plasma cutter. We're not thinking, big guy. We're doing. Elena popped up from behind the ruin bar, tossing a cracked bottle to Brick, who caught it left-handed, his right arm hanging useless at his side. You know what they say about big targets, she called. Brick grinned. Easier to hit. He hurled the bottle straight at Krax's face. The alien batted it away, just as Dax came charging in from the side, his massive shoulder slamming into Krax's ribs with a crunch. The armored giant staggered, swinging wildly. Dax went flying, but not before Jessa dove in, plasma cutter blazing. She carved a glowing line up Krax's chest plate. The alien roared, backhanding her so hard she skidded across the floor. Zyra suddenly appeared in front of Krax, her violet eyes blazing. "Enough," Krax sneered. "You dare stand against me, weakling?" VRYX moved to Zyra's side, his fists raised. "We're done following your orders." Krax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Then die with these animals." That's when the bar's remaining ceiling beam gave way with a thunderous crack. Krax looked up just in time to take several 100 pounds of wood and metal straight to the face. The dust settled slowly. Jessa groaned, pushing herself up on one elbow. "Anyone get the number of that freight train?" Elena limped over, offering a hand. "Think that was our tab coming due." They all gathered around Krax's unconscious form. VRYX prodded him with a boot. "He'll live." Unfortunately, Zyra turned to Jessa, her expression unreadable. "You fought for us, even after everything." Jessa shrugged, wincing as her ribs protested. He was an asshole. Seemed like the thing to do." Brick chuckled, then grimaced in pain. "So what now? You aliens gonna report back that humans are crazy?" VRYX exchanged a look with Zyra. When he spoke, his voice held something new, something almost like respect. "No, we'll report that humans understand something we've forgotten." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" Zyra smiled, a real, genuine smile. "That sometimes rules are meant to be broken." Outside, the first light of dawn crept through the shattered windows. Jessa stretched, hearing half a dozen joints pop. "Well, kids," she said, "I don't know about you, but I could use a drink. Duck's Glunt. Pretty sure Hart's gonna ban us for life." From behind what remained of the bar, the owner's voice growled. "Damn right I am. You're all paying for this." Laughter filled the broken bar, human and alien alike. Somewhere in the wreckage, the last neon bulb flickered out with a quiet hiss. And just like that, an understanding had been forged in the oldest human way possible, with fists, fire, and one hell of a bar tab. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.